Out of all of One Piece's phenomenal villains, Blackbeard was always set to be the most exciting of them all, but we never quite knew exactly how Oda was going to handle him when the time for him to be the main villain of the story would come around. And now that that time has come, right out of the gates, Oda is writing Blackbeard in a strikingly different manner from his usual pirate villains. There is a very common pattern in how Oda has depicted all of the pirate enemies the Straw Hats have taken down up till now, from East Blue, through the Grand Line, through the New World. And interestingly, Oda seems to be throwing all that out the window when it comes to Blackbeard, setting up Blackbeard to be the first true, quintessential pirate antagonist that a series about pirates has been strangely avoiding up till now. And I think with good reason, as Oda was saving a certain brand of villainy for one villain in particular, the most important villain of the story, and Luffy's ultimate rival for Pirate King, and that is, of course, Blackbeard. Today I'm going to be breaking down how Blackbeard is a sharp departure from all of Oda's other pirate antagonists, as well as why he seems set to surpass all other enemies so far in every major aspect of being a great villain. But before we get into it, make sure to subscribe, and I have a question. Do you go to restaurants? Do you pay for gas? Do you get groceries? Do you want to get money every time you do any of these things? If so, then use Upside, the sponsor for this video. Upside is a free app that literally gets you cash back on things for no reason. It has 4.8 stars on the App Store because the same way that you get a little cash back from credit card purchases, Upside gets you significantly more cash back at restaurants, gas stations, and grocery stores. You literally just see all these places in your area that Upside will give you cash back, your favorite restaurants, your local grocery store, etc., and you just claim the offers. Since prices are going up everywhere these days, Upside helps cancel that out for you. I used to drive a good deal out of my way to go to a less expensive gas station, but with Upside, now my closest gas station is actually way cheaper since I get so much cash back from using it. I also don't think twice about eating at my favorite restaurant anymore either, since Upside is getting me such a major discount. Guys, it's just literally free cash back at so many places. Just download the free Upside app and use code MORGE to get $5 or more cash back off your first purchase of $10 or more. Link in the description below. So that aside, although One Piece is a series about pirates, the reality is that throughout the story, most pirates we see are stationary figures. What do I mean by that? Well, there's a reason that One Piece has this reputation of being a sort of rinse and repeat cycle of Straw Hats getting to a new island, finding out there's a bad guy on said island, defeating said bad guy, and then moving on. Most of the pirate enemies that they encounter tend to be lording over a domain of some sort, and that's been the case since all the way back in East Blue, through the Grand Line, through the New World. Whether it's Buggy in Orange Town, or Arlong in Kokoyashi Village, or Crocodile in Alabasta, or Moria at Thriller Bark, or Doflamingo in Dressrosa, or Big Mom in Totoland, or Kaido in Wano, pirates in One Piece tend to be ruling over some sort of territory or another. It's when we get to the New World that their territories are so vast that they are literally called emperors, but really it's been like this on a smaller scale throughout One Piece so far, even going all the way back to the beginning of the story. Of course, this makes sense as it goes to the very idea of what pirates actually are meant to represent in the One Piece world, as in actuality, a main theme of the story is that the notion of being a pirate versus being a righteous, just government is purely based on who has the most power. In reality, the world government, of course, has no right to call itself a just authority any more than pirates that rule their own little territories do, but the world government is the strongest force on the seas, therefore it can. But that's precisely why so often we see that the pirates in the One Piece world function as lords or kings or even emperors over their own domains, as that is essentially what they actually are. They're simply labeled pirates by an even greater power that would rather characterize them as criminals that are rebelling against the true government. However, with Blackbeard, this is the first pirate in the story that it truly feels like Oda is writing as a genuine classical concept of what a pirate is. Blackbeard is not being written like the other emperors. He is not being written like Kaido or Big Mom. The moment the final saga began, and it was time for Blackbeard to get in action, Oda immediately had him and the Blackbeard pirates begin raids all across the New World, trying to steal the most valuable assets in the sea. Think about how much more aggressively Blackbeard has been moving in recent chapters compared to what we've seen from pirates in the past. Forget traveling to the New World to lead raids. Even within Wano country itself, Kaido barely even left his house the entire arc. Big Mom exclusively stays deep within Totoland as far as we know, again an emperor content ruling her own territory, and she only went to Wano after the absolute last straw. But Blackbeard has basically just announced that he's out to kill, steal, and take from anyone in the New World that he needs to. He's out to seize devil fruits, poneglyphs, captives, whatever is needed to get him to the treasure of One Piece. Seeing Blackbeard make a surprise raid on Amazon Lily of all places, and then literally just 4 chapters later hunting down Trafalgar Law, while simultaneously having his men pillage Whole Cake Island, is absolutely unprecedented behavior from any villain in One Piece. It truly feels like Blackbeard is this fast-moving pirate menace that is about to go on a tear through the Grand Line and the New World, who can appear at any time and target any character. No one and nowhere is off limits. Honestly, this feels like an actual genuine pirate villain, and that is so perfect for the point in the story we're at, where Luffy is at the final stage of his own pirate's journey. All that's left is to determine who will truly be the Pirate King. So writing Blackbeard to feel more and more like a true, honestly the first real pirate rival, other than some sort of a tyrant or overlord that we've gotten used to seeing Luffy fight, is a perfect setup for the battle over the final treasure, One Piece. Now, in the past, I've also talked about aspects of what I personally think make a great villain, and 3 key components in my opinion are: 1, the sense of threat that they bring to the story, 2, the relationship with the protagonist, and 3, character depth. And along the lines of what I've been talking about so far, what's so important with what Oda is doing with Blackbeard right now, and really what he's sort of been doing with Blackbeard throughout the entire story, is really building Blackbeard up in these first 2 categories. Look, Blackbeard has always been a menace even in the first half of the story before he was that strong, because everywhere he goes, he's thrown things into chaos. Capturing Ace, causing the level 6 Impel Down jailbreak, killing Whitebeard, stealing his fruit, all throughout the first half. Blackbeard would cause the worst possible outcomes for our protagonists and regularly shift the state of the world to becoming more and more precarious. But really what Oda started having Blackbeard do in the final saga seems like it's now on a whole different level, because it's clear that at this point there's absolutely no predicting just how far Oda may have Blackbeard go in his assault on the New World. What I mean is that most of us all expected already that at one point in story, Blackbeard would probably fight and probably defeat Shanks. That just seemed like the natural direction the story is headed, and that seemed as though that would be sort of the big great act that solidifies Blackbeard's threat as a villain heading into his last climactic confrontation with Luffy. But now we've realized that just because Blackbeard likely will take out Shanks one day, that doesn't mean that he's not also going to fuck up a bunch of other shit on the way there first. Already capturing Luffy's first friend and the Marine hero, nearly killing Boa Hancock, capturing Sanji's love interest while making the Big Mom pirates look like chumps in the process, and potentially capturing Luffy's greatest ally, Trafalgar Law. That's all in just the first 7 chapters of the final saga. The sense of threat that Blackbeard is quickly establishing heading into the final matchup with Luffy is ramping up insanely fast. It genuinely feels like he's going to turn into a force of widespread terror in a manner that Kaido and Big Mom simply never felt like, that Luffy will absolutely have to put a stop to as the only other pirate that can compete with him at the end of the day. As a reminder, Blackbeard's predecessor, the role that it seems Blackbeard's kind of taking up in the modern world, is Rocks, who himself was a pirate that basically threatened the entire world that only Roger could put a stop to. That seems like the scenario that is fast approaching with Blackbeard, which is why Oda seems to be ramping up the piracy of Blackbeard so fast as the final saga begins. By the end of the story, I wouldn't be surprised if the villain that has collected the most wins over the course of One Piece is Blackbeard, since everything he did pre-time skip with Ace, Impel Down, killing Whitebeard, etc. was already huge. And now, knowing that Shanks is already on the docket as well for Blackbeard, on top of apparently all these other characters he seems like he's going to be hitting on the way, Blackbeard's resume by the end of One Piece will probably only be second to Luffy's, which is exactly what you want out of a true villainous rival. And in that sense, Blackbeard's personal antagonistic relationship with Luffy is phenomenal already. Because it's not just the fact that Blackbeard basically caused the death of Luffy's brother, it's not even the fact that Luffy clearly hates hates Blackbeard and holds a strong grudge against him. What really, truly makes Blackbeard stand out from any other villain in One Piece, what separates him, is that Blackbeard is the only one that genuinely understands Luffy. So many villains argue with Luffy and clash with his way of thinking, or outright can't comprehend why he does what he does. But the way Blackbeard speaks to Luffy is very often as though they are one and the same. Whether it's talking about dreams, or about how nothing in this world is impossible to achieve, Blackbeard is the only one who sees what Luffy sees, and that is extremely interesting. As with other villains, Luffy will almost always have some sort of a retort or a punch to throw back their way. But when Blackbeard makes certain statements to Luffy that mirror exactly how Luffy himself already thinks, Luffy actually often has no response. The fact that Blackbeard thinks the same as Luffy frames him perfectly as the only man that truly also has the potential to be Pirate King, while simultaneously the fact that Blackbeard takes actions to become Pirate King that Luffy never would frames Blackbeard perfectly as the one man Luffy absolutely must defeat to become the correct form of Pirate King. I genuinely think that Blackbeard gets under Luffy's skin in a manner that no other villain does, because he's the only villain that Luffy can't truly refute or shoot down. Luffy sometimes has no response to Blackbeard because Blackbeard is just a different version of him. I always look forward to the clash of ideals we get between Luffy and the villain during their final battle, and Blackbeard's dialogue with Luffy is said to be by far the most unique and the most telling of Luffy's own personal philosophy. And finally, in terms of character depth, we have certainly gotten plenty of hints at a very tragic figure with Blackbeard. We know that Blackbeard had two sisters. We know that when he was depicted as a child, he was shown crying, indicating a sad past. We know there's a good deal of mystery with the fact that he never sleeps for some reason. And we know that he was an orphan when Whitebeard first took him in. And again, the fact that he's grown up with the same dream as Luffy and the same romantic beliefs, yet with such a warped perspective on the right way to achieve those dreams, suggests that there is a fascinating and deeply painful backstory to come for his character. I would not be surprised if Blackbeard is ultimately not only the most dangerous and threatening villain in One Piece, not only the most personally antagonistic villain to Luffy, but also the most sympathetic and layered villain in the entire story. As it is right now, Blackbeard has the makings of a backstory that can likely put Doflamingos to shame. So at the end of the day, Im may be the final villain, but at this point in the story, I can't imagine Im being a terribly fleshed out villain. Im may function more as an NL, more conceptually great villain, an almighty god to be defeated to bring the story of freedom overcoming unjust authority full circle. However, I am betting that Blackbeard will ultimately be the far better villain, one far more human with more depth, more of a real fleshed out relationship with the hero, and at the end of the day, simply the single most exciting character in One Piece. Period. Because the one thing you can always say about Blackbeard is that anytime, anywhere that he appears, there is some drastic, game-changing incident that is about to happen. And in all of One Piece, and in all anime and manga in general, I think Blackbeard is the villain that is set to most consistently surprise and throw a major wrench in the works wherever he goes. So if you think that Blackbeard is already the best villain in One Piece, let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, then definitely like, comment, and subscribe. And you can get my extended thoughts on this and all future topics by becoming a member. Just hit the button below.